Greetings. So today I'd like to talk about two verses. The first one is Isaiah 2:4. And he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Great verse talking about peace. In fact, this verse is sometimes even quoted by non-Christians from the Bible. Yeah, this is one of those verses they like to quote, usually out of context. So yeah, this verse is calling for peace. Great. Now let me show you another passage in Joel chapter 3 verse 10. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. So, another passage in the Bible, also in the Old Testament. Isaiah and Joel aren't that far apart from each other. They were written, it's hard to say the date, but they're probably, maybe within 100 years of each other they were written. So, different context, telling you the exact opposite. Take your pruning hook, turn it into a spear, and your plowshare into a sword. So obviously, this is a good verse for comparison purposes because it's saying the exact opposite. So someone that doesn't really think very deeply will use this and say, oh, look, it's a contradiction in the Bible. Like many apparent contradictions in the Bible. It's usually people just not really thinking very deeply or clearly at all. And they're just trying to find something wrong with the Bible. This is obviously not a contradiction. Context is always important. That's why you need to study the Bible, not just read it in a very shallow manner. You actually need to study it to understand it. So anyway, this is obviously not a contradiction. So it's all about context, because there's a time for war, there's a time for peace. The Bible even says that in Ecclesiastes. It literally says there is a time to kill. I don't think that's kind of appropriate for the day we live in. You don't just go out killing people, but at the time there was a reason for it. They were at war and they're trying to defend themselves. So there's a reason for it. But yes, the Bible does actually say that in Ecclesiastes. So the first passage in Isaiah calls for peace, and this one calls for war, because it's all about wisdom. The world isn't just so black and white. You really do have to ask the Lord for the correct action in some cases. Sometimes when you're dealing with someone, you need to show love and kindness. Other times, love and kindness is the wrong thing, actually, and sometimes you do need to have some sternness and strictness. So it's not always so black and white in how you should act. It's not always like be a super nice person. And that's why I think a lot of people have a wrong idea about Christianity in our time and day, because they think that Christians are just like super nice all the time, but they don't understand that there's a lot more depth to that. There's a lot of depth to the Bible. And you don't just act in one manner. Like Jesus wasn't always some nice guy. He flipped over tables and he got angry because it was righteous anger. He was angry for the right reasons. So anyway, I just wanted to show these two passages to show like how interesting it is that the Bible does in fact not always say the same thing, and that there is context. Context is involved. It's not always black and white. And the Lord understands that. So God's love has been kind of perverted in today's day. It's like, God loves everyone. And they forget about, God's hate. There's God's love, which is, and then there's God's hate. And there's both of those things exist, and you need to be aware of those things. Otherwise, like, how do you explain why hell exists? If God's just love, why is there hell? So people just like to conveniently ignore these types of things. So you just need to understand that there's God is justice, and so that is something to keep in mind. And so that's why here it's a very good passage. These two passages show that context is important, and that God will say different things at different times, and it's not a contradiction. Just like, in the book of Proverbs, it says, answer. It says like literally back to back. It says answer a fool according to his folly, and then or it was the other way around, and then it also said answer not a fool according to his folly. So basically, it's just different context. That's you have to use wisdom and approach every situation possibly differently. It's not always like a one size fits all. And it's the same thing when you're witnessing or preaching the gospel to someone. Sometimes you have to use intellectual arguments depending on the person. Sometimes that doesn't work and you need to try some different approach. Just read some Bible verses. It really just depends. Everybody's different, and you can't. And certain people can't reach certain other people. Like someone might not listen to you just because they don't like you. They don't like what you stand for, but they're willing to listen to someone else. So it really just depends. So, you can just keep praying for people that don't want to listen, and hopefully God will send someone else to talk to them. But yeah, just the context, very important, and nuance, critical thinking. They keep like to talk about critical thinking skills and how important they are, and they're not teaching them. People don't have critical thinking skills these days, even though the public school system claims that this is so important, critical thinking skills. But yeah, why do people not have them then? Like, if you care so much about critical thinking skills, then teach them. Teach nuance. Teach people to think with wisdom. And nuance is a very big word, very lacking. So, not to rush to conclusions and actually think. Why is this other person saying something different? Why do they disagree with me? And actually think about why they believe what they believe and understand that. That's very important. Very lacking in today's society. So anyway, I just thought this was a great set of passages to talk about. I'll see you next time.